Welcome, Bronco Nation, to another exciting review of the top 25 matchups for Boise State from Boise State perspective. We're going to look at the top 25 matchups this week and how Boise State fans should root in each of them. Now, Boise State, the Friday game still hangs in the balance whether or not Boise State's going to be able to play in that after having to cancel the San Jose State game. Nothing official. Boise State still officially is set to play in that, but I know a lot of fans are on the edge of their seats. Brian Harsin was talking about how nervous he was about the game being in jeopardy in his post-game conference, well, there was no game, but in his press conference. So a lot of, we've still got our fingers crossed. Right now it's set for 7:30 p.m. on Friday on CBS Sports Network. But regardless of whether or not that game goes through, there are a lot of exciting top 25 matchups that could end up impacting Boise State significantly this weekend. So in the event that Boise State game does get canceled, or if it does happen either way, there's a lot of football that needs to be kept an eye on this weekend. Because while Boise State's chances of getting to the New Year's Six are slim, and they got a little slimmer after Nevada lost to Hawaii, now Boise State doesn't have the ability to play a potentially ranked Nevada team in the Mountain West Championship game. There is still a possibility, and this weekend you could do a lot to getting Boise State there. So just to lay it out, this is the best chance that Boise State has to get to the New Year's Six. Cincinnati goes to the playoffs. Cincinnati goes to the playoffs, leaves the New Year's Six slot open. All the other teams ahead of Boise State, and with new rankings coming out, there are additional ones in the rankings now ahead. Welcome Louisiana to the top 25. All the group of 5 teams in the top 25 right now either lose and fall out of the rankings or fail to win their conference. If both of those things happen and Boise State is seen as the next up team, which I think they would be, then Boise State gets the slot to the New Year's Six. Right now, it is a long shot, but it's not impossible, and it's a COVID year. It's 2020. Crazier things have happened this year. This could happen, and we're going to work out the way how you need to root to ensure that it does. So, first game that we're going to look at is at 6:30 p.m. on ESPN. Number 25, Louisiana, takes on Appalachian State. Appalachian State played Coastal Carolina very close last weekend. They're a very good football team sitting at 7-2, and they could definitely see their way to knocking off Louisiana here. They're actually favored in this matchup by 2.5 points. Louisiana jumping into the rankings. Surprising move at 8-1. Not a lot of no quality wins besides the win over Iowa State. And their lone loss so far is Coastal Carolina, fellow Sun Belt team. So a interesting decision to move them into the top 25. I can see where they would get that just because of where Iowa State is right now and having had the win earlier in the season against them. But there were a lot of factors in that game. Regardless, Boise State fans, Friday, when we're rooting for Appalachian State to knock off Louisiana, I think they can do it. I think they're going to do it. But with Louisiana moving up in the rankings right now, it's Appalachian State is the last real big chance to knock them off versus maybe whoever they meet in their championship game. This is going to be the best chance, I think, to knock off Louisiana, at least in the regular season. All right, Saturday, December 5th, at 10 a.m. Mountain Time on ABC, we have Ohio State versus Michigan State. So before, we were kind of talking about, we want Cincinnati to get knocked out so that maybe Boise State gets that group of 6, that New Year's Six slot as the group of 5 representative. Now we need Cincinnati to get to the playoffs. But to do that, they need 4 teams ahead of them. Well, 6 teams, with Texas A&M and Florida, but they need a slot to open up. So we're going to need to see Alabama, Notre Dame, Clemson, or Ohio State, Notre Dame, Alabama, Notre Dame, Clemson, or Ohio State to fall out of the rankings. So Michigan State pulled off a big upset last week when they took out, was it Wisconsin that they beat? No, Northwestern, when they beat Northwestern last week. Big upset, knocking out the undefeated Northwestern at the time. Oh, shoot, my battery is going to die. Sorry here. It's a little unprofessional, but I need to grab my battery charger real quick. Should check that for. Anyhow, so Michigan State, they've been really bad this year, except last week when they beat Northwestern. They're still Michigan State. They're still a Big Ten team. I think that they still have the possibility here. They're a long shot. Ohio State is favored by 24, but it is a rivalry, or a bit of a rivalry there, so I think that this would be a good opportunity. Great for Boise State fans. It's going to be 10 a.m. Mountain Time on ABC. 10 a.m. Mountain Time, ESPN, Texas A&M, number 5, one of those other teams ahead of Cincinnati against Auburn. Auburn had a tough loss to Alabama, but they just fell out of the rankings, so they are still a good football team. Texas A&M is only favored by 7 points. I think Texas A&M is probably going to get the win in this one, but Auburn is still a good football team. They have the ability to surprise, and they could pull off the upset here. Big upset would knock Texas A&M out of the playoff hunt and open up the hole for Cincinnati. 10 a.m. Mountain Time, ESPN2, 15 Oklahoma State versus TCU. So in addition to knocking the teams out underneath in the top 5 or the top 8 there with Cincinnati, in addition to knocking those out, we also need Boise State to get into the top 25. So we need teams that are close to being between 15 and 25 to fall. So unfortunately, Boise State fans, and it kills me to say it, and I know it's going to suck, but we need TCU to win this game. It's probably be the first time in my life I've ever rooted for TCU. Well, that might not be true. I mean, there's a couple of times where it's been advantageous for Boise State if TCU had won. I hate doing it, but we need Oklahoma State to lose. With Oklahoma State having beaten us a couple of years ago, I don't think it's too hard to root against Oklahoma State in this one. We're going to have to root for TCU. Kind of a loss there as Boise State fans are involved. But Western Carolina versus North Carolina, number 17, North Carolina. 10 a.m. Mountain Time, ACC Network. Western Carolina is a FCS opponent. Obviously going to be rooting for them. If they pull off the upset, it'd be great. Probably not going to happen, but it'd be great. Rice versus Marshall, 10 a.m. Mountain Time, ESPN+. So this is another one of those group of 5 teams has a chance to go down. So we already talked about how Louisiana, sitting ahead of Boise State at 25, has a chance to lose. Has a good chance to lose. Marshall, now they are favored by 23.5 points, but Rice is a bit of a mystery opponent. Now they are 1-2, but you heard what I said, 1-2. They've only played 3 games this year. They've had 4 games that have been postponed or canceled. So Rice is a team that is desperate for a win, desperate to win their season on a high note, has had tons of practice time, and there's a little bit of an unknown about how good they really are. Well, I mean, we assume they're terrible, but there's a little bit of unknown about what their true capabilities are. This is one to keep an eye on. Rice may play Marshall close in this, and that would be probably one of the best chances, besides whoever Marshall meets in their conference championship game, to knock off Marshall. Be huge for Boise State fans, because Marshall right now is looking like a very scary opponent as far as opportunity to take that group of 5 slot. Syracuse versus Notre Dame, 12:30. There's one more for this. Okay, yes. So 12 p.m. Mountain Time, ESPNU, Liberty versus Coastal Carolina. And for this one, I'm going to just switch hats for a second. All right. So, as most of you know, Liberty is my second team. Huge Liberty Flames fan. And I'm glad that I get to pick this one, because all the other games that I've had to give the analysis for, I've had to pick against, or at least say for the videos, against Liberty, because in all the other times it wasn't Boise State's favor for Liberty to lose, and these videos are from a Boise State perspective. But this game, Liberty versus Coastal Carolina and Marshall are the 2 most dangerous teams to take that New Year's 6 slot if Cincinnati gets into the playoffs. We need both of those teams to lose big time. Coastal Carolina is the most dangerous, sitting the highest behind Cincinnati at 18th right now in the group of 5. We need Coastal Carolina, the Chanticleers, I think, or Chanticleers. Really weird name. It's a name for rooster from the Old English. So anyhow, we need Coastal Carolina to lose big time. Liberty at 9-1 has been an excellent football team. They have wins over Syracuse and Virginia Tech, and their only loss this season is a 1-point loss at NC State. They're a really good football team. They have a star quarterback called Malik Willis. He's actually the former backup quarterback for Auburn. Incredible speed and athleticism. I think Liberty is going to win this game. Coastal Carolina is favored. They run a very dangerous, weird option style offense, but their quarterback still has 18 passing touchdowns. So weird offense to cover, but I think Liberty's going to take this one. Boise State fans have to, this week, we all got to be Liberty fans. Of course, I have a head start in that area, but this week, Boise State fans, this is probably the biggest game to watch as far as this and the App State game, as far as an opportunity to knock off a dangerous opponent ahead of Boise State. Besides the Boise State game on Friday, this is one of the biggest games. It's going to be on ESPNU, 12 p.m. Mountain Time. Oh, another thing, I'm not the only one that thinks this is a big game, because college game day is going to be, ESPN game day is going to be at Coastal Carolina for this matchup. Huge opportunity for Liberty to knock off Coastal Carolina's shots in the New Year's 6 and help Boise State get that much closer to a chance to getting to New Year's 6. So this week, Saturday at 12 p.m. Mountain Time, ESPNU rooting for Liberty. Okay, so 12:30 p.m. Mountain Time, NBC, Syracuse versus Notre Dame. We're going to want Syracuse to win, probably not going to, but it'd be great if they could knock off number 2 Notre Dame. 1:30 p.m. Mountain Time, CBS. Big televised network here. Florida versus Tennessee. Tennessee is 2-5, having another rough year, but they are actually pretty good football team. They're just playing a lot of tough opponents. I think Tennessee is still a couple of seasons away from really getting into its stride as far as getting back into competing for the SEC. But I think they're on their way there, and this could be a game that would be challenging and see if they can work their way into it. They have faded down the stretch in games, so if they can hang around and keep tough into the second half, they might have a chance here against number 6 Florida. 1:30 p.m. Mountain Time, ESPN, West Virginia versus number 9 Iowa State. Want Iowa State to lose for two reasons. First off, they're a top 10 team. We want them to get knocked back. But secondly, their quality win that Louisiana has that's pushing them into the top 25 is over Iowa State. If Iowa State can get dominated by West Virginia, it will discredit that, and a potential loss to App State, or even maybe not even losing necessarily there, would discredit. We want Iowa State to have just the worst season it can from this point on, where they've had a great season so far. They're really competing, probably going to win the Big 12. But if Iowa State can lose here, it will discredit Louisiana a little bit. So we want West Virginia to win in this one. Number 12 versus Indiana versus number 16 Wisconsin. 1:30 p.m. Mountain Time on ABC. Indiana saw their playoff hopes dashed a couple weeks ago with just a really devastating loss to Ohio State. Really, they were in it all the way until the end there. Would have been great for Boise State fans if they'd been able to win that as far as Cincinnati's hopes of getting to the playoffs, but they didn't. We're going to want number 12 Indiana, though, to win this one against 16 Wisconsin, knocking them back in the rankings. If they could dominate them, might be enough to push them out of the rankings. 1:30 p.m. Mountain Time, FS1, number 19 Iowa. You heard me right, number 19 Iowa. Despite being 4-2 with two very bad losses to start the season and barely winning by 6 points in a comeback win against 1-4 Nebraska, who is just trash this year, Iowa jumped 5 places from 24th to 19th. That is ridiculous. That's just the playoff committee affirming they're already bad. Of all the terrible playoff committees that we have had, this might be the worst as far as outlandish decisions, clear bias towards the East Coast and the Midwest regions against the Mountain. I already talked all through this in my review of their initial rankings. Indefensible actions moving Iowa to 19th after barely beating Nebraska. So we want Illinois 2-3. If they could knock off Iowa, which is not even that good of a football team this year, it'd be great. Knock them out of the rankings. Even a close game might be enough to push them back. But who knows? I mean, they barely beat against Nebraska. Maybe they'll get moved to the top 10 if they barely beat Illinois. You can see I'm a little steamed about this one. Just terrible decisions by the committee this year. 1:30 p.m. Mountain Time, ESPN2, number 24 Tulsa versus Navy. This is another one of those huge group of 5 matchups. Navy has been inconsistent this year, but they still have a challenging offense to defend. They're an option offense, so it's always going to be tough to defend them. I think that they have a good shot here against number 24 Tulsa. They're not favored. Tulsa is by 12 points, but I think Navy has a good shot of beating them. If Navy can beat Tulsa, Tulsa then has to go play Cincinnati and then probably has to play Cincinnati again in the championship game. If Navy can beat Tulsa and knock them back, it would be a great step into making sure that Tulsa has no chance of getting into the group New Year's 6. 2 p.m. Mountain Time, SEC Network, Vanderbilt versus Georgia. Vanderbilt is just garbage this year at 0-8, having one of their worst seasons. I don't remember what their record was last year. It was pretty bad last year, too. But really bad year for Vanderbilt. It'd be great if they could knock off number 8 Georgia. Probably not going to happen, but it would not keep them out of Cincinnati's hair there. 2 p.m. Mountain Time, Fox. This is the big network, the game for a 2 p.m. slot. Stanford versus Washington. Washington at 22 just jumped into the rankings after being 3-0 so far with a big win against Utah last weekend. It'd be great if Stanford could knock them out. I think Washington is actually a pretty good football team this year, but it'd be great if Stanford could knock them out there. We're rooting for Stanford. 5 p.m. Mountain Time, ESPN, number 23, Oregon versus California. Oregon, of course, lost last week in the Civil War against Oregon State. It'd be great. They're really reeling from that. It'd be great if California could pile on the steam and knock them clear out of the top 25. Might open up room for a team, probably not Boise State, but might open up room for San Jose State. And it looks like Boise State is going to play San Jose State in the Mountain West Championship game, assuming nothing happens weird between now and then, such as one of those two teams losing. So it'd be great if San Jose State could get into that top 25. That's what we're really rooting for right now, is for San Jose State to get in the top 25, because they probably have a better chance than Boise right now. But Boise is always on the edge there, and they're always in the playoff committee. Well, they're always in the rankers' minds, having had such a dominant past 2 decades. So it'd be great if California could beat Oregon here. 5:30 p.m. Mountain Time, ABC, Clemson versus Virginia Tech. Be great. This is a really good chance for Clemson to get knocked out of that top 4. Now, they are heavily favored, but Virginia Tech has been a challenging football team this year. Now, they have had some rough losses. They are at 4-5, but I think they're better than what their record shows. So, if Virginia Tech could knock off Clemson, it would be great, and I think they're going to have a good shot. Now, if Clemson starts getting off to a big lead, it's going to be pretty much impossible for Virginia Tech to get back into it. But if Virginia Tech can keep them close and keep the game extended and long and keep their defense off the field as long as possible, it might give them a shot. So we're rooting for Virginia Tech in that one. 6 p.m. Mountain Time, CBS, the big one, Alabama versus LSU, that big matchup. This year, not so much because LSU is just trash after Burrows left. He was pretty much their entire offense. They are having one of the worst seasons ever for a national champion in their follow-up year. So it kind of looked like my Eagles do a little bit after winning their Super Bowl. So they're having a really terrible year this year. It'd be great if LSU could beat Alabama, knock them out of that top 4. Who knows? It's a rivalry game, and anything could happen. 6 p.m. Mountain Time, ACC Network, number 10 Miami versus Duke. Duke is at 2-7, but Miami is a little overranked here. At 7-1. They are in the ACC. They've had Derek King, the transfer from Houston, has had a good year. But at the same time, they are not. They are. I think they're overranked because they haven't looked dominant or convincing in their wins. I mean, they have close losses to NC State and Virginia Tech, and they just haven't looked like a top 10 team. I think they're top 25, but not necessarily top 10. I don't know if Duke will beat them, but I think that it's possible. I think it's more possible than any other top 10 team facing if they were to face Duke. So it'd be great to watch that game. 6 p.m. Mountain Time on Fox. Baylor versus Oklahoma, another big game here. It's kind of turned into a bit of a rivalry since Baylor joined the Big 12. Of course, some big matchups, and we remember Griffin beating them in that incredible game that he had. So it'd be great if Baylor could knock off Oklahoma here at number 11. And then the Northwestern game was canceled. So that is the wrap for top 25 matchups this weekend. As you can see, a lot of exciting matchups. I'm just going to review real quick again the big ones. And it's going to be the group of 5 matchups. Louisiana versus Appalachian State. I think App State, I'm just going to say, because Appalachian over and over again is a tongue twister. Saying App State beat Louisiana would be incredible for Boise State's chances. Liberty versus Coastal Carolina, one of the biggest games here. Coastal Carolina, the biggest threat to the nearest 6. That's the second big one. Then we have Marshall versus Rice. Keep an eye on that one. I think that's a good opportunity. And then Tulsa versus Navy. Navy has a really good shot. We could see 3 of the contenders for the New Year's 6 go down this weekend, leaving potentially only Cincinnati and Marshall. If Cincinnati, of course, gets the New Year's 6 and to the playoffs, they're not a contender for that. And then that would just leave Marshall, who still has to face an opponent for their caliber, at least somewhat challenging. It's really a shame Boise State didn't play Marshall this year, because that would have resolved all of this, but they didn't. Marshall's really good this year, but if there's a chance that at the end of this weekend, the only thing standing Boise State's way would be basically Marshall, because Cincinnati is now Boise State's friend as far as we want them to get into the playoffs. So potentially at the end of the weekend, only Marshall is in Boise State's way. If the Tulsa versus Navy, Appalachian State versus Louisiana, and Liberty versus Coastal Carolina games go as Boise State fans desire. So big matchups to watch, a lot of exciting games, a lot of really good upset opportunities this weekend. Make sure you keep tuned in on that, and keep an eye out for my 3 keys to the game video for UNLV coming out in the next couple of days here. All right, thank you so much. Make sure to join Bronco Nation Updates page, over 8,000 members, great community to root on Boise State and other top 25 matchups that impact Boise State. Make sure you join that community. All right, thank you so much. Go Big Blue.